Hi, my name's Lori Wheeler. I'm going to be giving a brief discussion on perspectives about human nature based on the chapter that discussed Thomas Hobbes and Jean-Jacques Rousseau. I'm also going to be presenting that third perspective, which originated with John Locke, and that's the idea that we're a blank slate. So, first of all, Thomas Hobbes had the perspective that people are essentially evil. People are essentially bad, selfish, self-seeking. They're trying to fulfill their own wants and desires, and if we're left to ourselves, we sort of just devour one another. Jean-Jacques Rousseau had a more positive perspective, more optimistic about human nature. He said, people are born good, people are essentially good. If we're left to ourselves, we're actually we tend to live in harmony. We tend to care for one another. We tend to be loving. We tend to just be good-natured. As I mentioned before, that third perspective, also mentioned in this particular chapter of Who Are We, was this perspective that comes from John Locke. It's more similar to Jean-Jacques Rousseau. It's this idea that people aren't really born with a nature. They're just taught things by parents or society in general. They're not born with evil or with good. They're just born with sort of an empty mind, and we teach babies and children how to behave. The two perspectives from Hobbes and Rousseau have very different perspectives on what government is, what sort of an influence it has on society. Hobbes said it's absolutely necessary for us to have a government. If there were no government, we would just live in chaos and anarchy, and we would devour one another, we would take from one another, brutally kill, and no one would really experience the greater good. We need this government, the Leviathan, to protect us from ourselves and to be a sort of saving power that rules over us. Rousseau's perspective was that if we're left to ourselves, we will live in harmony. In fact, we will be better off if we don't have government, if we have just this sort of free-moving society where we all just get to live as our natural selves. Those evil people that we find are actually influenced by government. Government is what corrupts us. Society, the state, it has a negative impact on us. Now, in general, I think people would tend to believe more of the John Locke perspective or the Jean-Jacques Rousseau perspective. Especially in American society, we tend to be a little more optimistic about the nature of people, the nature of mankind, humans. We don't really see them as being totally evil, being born evil. That's a little hard for us to grasp. We do see a lot of selfless deeds, and we see people doing heroic things for one another. So it's hard to see that people would just be born naturally very evil, naturally very bad. So for me, however, I have a bit of trouble just reasoning out people being essentially good and just totally good at birth. Then where did that first evil person come from? If we were all born good from day one of man's existence, whether that be through evolution or whatever your belief is, that first man, if he was essentially good, then where did we find evil? Where did we come up with this idea? Also, if people are good, but government is bad, and government is made up of humans, it's not made up of Martians or some sort of otherworldly characters, it's made up of us, these essentially good people. Where did corrupt government come from? Why is it that the state is so bad, and that people in leadership and people who govern are all of a sudden bad once they come together? That doesn't quite doesn't stand to reason for me personally. As far as the idea of a blank slate, it doesn't totally stand up to reason for me either. It seems to me that if people were born as blank slates from day one, then where did the idea of good and bad come from? Who was the first person to be a good person or to be a bad person? If we were all just born blank slates, wouldn't we sort of have stayed blank slates? Where did even that idea, the concept of good and bad, where did we find that? Where did we discover that along the way? It doesn't totally stand to reason. Also, if we see very, very bad people. We would classify maybe Hitler as an extra bad person, or we would classify the Green River Killer, Gary Ridgway, as a very bad person. Who modeled that behavior for them? What kind of parents did they have? What kind of a strange, disturbed childhood did Gary Ridgway have? Or what sort of teachers or just models of behavior? Who modeled those behaviors to them? If they were taught all those very, very scary, evil behaviors, where did they find those? Doesn't quite stand to reason for me. I don't really think any of these three perspectives are solid, as far as I can tell. They all have some holes in logic, and these are just a few of me, just as a regular person, stepping back and looking at them, seeing what I believe, seeing how they stand up to my own reasoning. I know there are a lot of perspectives out there. Really, I wish the best of luck to anybody who's trying to figure this thing out for themselves, because it's a difficult task. It's not easy. There's a lot of options, and there's a lot of just a lot of questions, and I just don't think any of these three really answer all the questions for me. So, like I said, I wish anyone trying to discover this for themselves, I wish them the best of luck.